49 caps, 5 goals, not least the one against Cameroon at the 2002 World Cup. Delighted to say Matt Holland is with us. Hi Matt, how you doing?
Afternoon, Joe. Yeah, very well. Thanks. Yourself?
Very well, as well as you can be, I suppose, under these incredibly strange circumstances. Where are you at the moment in the UK?
Yeah, at home, just outside Colchester. So all here as well. Got my 2 boys here now. One of my sons is in America at university, but we got him back on Wednesday, so that was good news. And the other one works in London, but he's back home as well, working from home. So all isolated at home at the moment.
And had his university closed down in the States?
Yeah, so he's working online now. So they're completely shut down. He's out in Florida, actually, and there's no lockdown as such there. But he's back now doing his work online. So his graduation will be cancelled because this was his last year. So we'll have to try and find another day where he can get his graduation day. One
of the many normal lives very much affected by all this. What about you? Obviously, we know you as a pundit a lot now, and we see you on our screens and hear you on our radios quite a bit. So is that your main way of spending your time, your main almost, I suppose, job at this stage? So you're kind of in lockdown?
I've got a new job. I'm a new groom. My wife's got horses at home, so I've been mucking out the stables every day, which is, the first couple of days was fine, but it's starting to wear a bit thin now. No, I'm still broadcasting from home, so still doing the odd bits and pieces, the odd podcast here and there, and stuff for TalkSport. But yeah, generally it's jobs around the house. I'm fixing fencing, cutting the grass, mucking out the stables, same as everyone else, really.
It beats staring at Sky News all day.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. No, it's nice to. I'm very fortunate. I'm out in the country, so I've got a bit of land around where we can go walking and stuff. So at least we're not stuck inside the house completely 24 hours a day. But it's not ideal.
No, to say the least. So I guess, look, the plan is to have a chat about your career and get some thoughts, memories from you. You were born, I think, Bury, and was it London you went to when you were 9, 10 years of age? That was your general childhood? Was this a sporty household, football mad household?
Yeah, we were a football household, absolutely. My dad actually was, I was born in Bury. My dad used to play sort of non-league football around Bury. And he actually was not a bad player himself. I think when he was about 21, 22, he got offered terms with a club called Barrow, who were I think hoping, certainly the National League, to get back into the Football League this year, but decided against it. There wasn't an awful lot of money in football at the time, and he decided that he had a steady job in the bank. He had a young family, so myself and my brother, only 14 months apart, decided to continue in his job in the bank. Played non-league football locally. But I used to go and watch my dad on the sideline from the age of 3, 4, really, and from day one, completely fell in love with the game and kicked a ball around. So it was always my life, yeah.
Total obsession, football, the main priority growing up.
Oh, absolutely. I think my most treasured Christmas present was a pair of football boots. Slept in them for about a week. It was all I ever wanted to do. So yeah, fortunate enough, was able to do exactly that. And I think my dad loved it as well. The fact that he sort of had an opportunity, didn't quite happen for him, but the fact that he was able to follow my career as close as he did was a real pleasure for him.
So how much of a hotshot prospect was Matt Holland?
What, as in at that time? What the chances of being a footballer, do you think? Oh wow! I mean,
was everyone looking at the Holland kid going, "Geez, that Matt's going to make it one day"?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I was, obviously not a bad player, but when we moved south, I was about, I'm trying to think, 9 years old. And straight away, Southampton's academy picked me up, and I started training with them. And then Arsenal got me involved in their academy as well. So I played county football and just was always captain of the teams I played for. Played in the school team sort of a couple of years above and all those things. But I don't think you ever know that you're going to make it. There's so many players that have got so much talent that fall by the wayside for whatever reason. So there's no guarantees, no matter how good you are at that age, that you're going to continue it through and become a professional.
Am I right that Arsenal rejected you for being too small?
Well, that's always a nice way of saying you're not good enough, isn't it, when they say you're too small? And at 13, 14, it eases the pain a little bit, I think. It's heartbreaking when you get told that, thanks, but no thanks. And I had a year sort of without a professional team, if you like. I played local football again and county stuff before West Ham picked me up. So it was it's hard, when you're 13 and 14 and someone says, actually, thanks very much, you're not quite good enough.
Well, yeah, especially when you're too small. What do you want me to do about it?
Yeah, there's not a lot you can do about it, and people grow at different ages as well, don't they? So I'm 5'10". I'm not tiny by any stretch of the imagination, but at that age, I hadn't quite grown, and but as I say, I think it's just an easy way of saying you're not quite good enough for us. And
where did school figure in your priorities at that stage? Like, were you a good student, or were you ditch the books, practice?
Well, I was practice, but what do you think when it came to school? I worked hard at pretty much everything I did, really, and school was another one of those. And my dad always sort of said that it was something that was important to do. You make sure that your schoolwork was done, because you just never know that something might happen. You're never going to be. There's no guarantee you're going to be a footballer. So I did all right at school. Got some reasonable qualifications, but as I say, never needed them, and I've never used them. But I left school at 16 with 8 O levels.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised. You say you worked hard at everything, because I think effectively you were captain of every team you played for as well. So clearly, one of your best attributes was your attitude, and that's not a kind of faux compliment. That's an amazing thing to say about anyone, to have a good attitude to all aspects of life. Did that come from dad, parents? Was that just innate in you, just a conscientious approach to life?
I think it's something that you can't teach someone. I honestly think it's inbuilt. I think you've either got it or you haven't. That ability to work as hard as you possibly can. And I always wanted to prove to people, I don't know, my dad especially, I guess, I wanted him to sort of say well done and get a pat on the back off him most of the time. So it's funny actually when you talk about the attitude, because I was listening to a podcast from Kieran Dyer, local one to us with Ipswich, and he was sort of going through his best 11 that he played with at Ipswich, and he said about me, he said he was not the most technically gifted player that he's ever played with, but everything he did was sort of 7 out of 10, and you put them all together and you got a decent player. And that was me, really. Just worked incredibly hard at what I had. I mean, I wasn't the most technically gifted. I'd be the first to hold my hands up at that. I wasn't someone that would go and beat 3 or 4 men and show off skills like Damien Duff could, or Robbie Keane, people like that. But I was someone that gave everything I could to possibly be a professional footballer.
And Matt, was your father somebody who was tough to get a well done from?
Yeah, he was. He was quite tough. He was. We had many a silent car journey home from matches after things hadn't gone particularly well, or he was my biggest fan, but he was also my biggest critic. Right. He was. I'm looking at loads of scrapbooks that he's put together through my career down here. I've got them all here because he sadly has passed away now, so I've managed to get hold of them now. But he took great pleasure in what I did, but at the same time he was the first person to tell me if I hadn't done particularly well. And the one thing he'd always pick up if I didn't try, or that was always the thing for him. If I didn't put the work in and put the effort in, that'd be the first thing he'd tell me. Not that I'd misplaced the pass or not done the right things. It was if I hadn't tracked someone back, or that sort of stuff that would irritate him more.
Yes, the effort, the things you can control.
Yeah, exactly. And that was him, really, because he was a bit the same as me, really, a bad loser and someone that worked hard at his game. He wasn't, wasn't technically gifted particularly, but he put everything into it, what he did as well.
And sorry, not to pry, did he see you reach heights for Ireland? Did he see your career? The scrapbooks, I guess he did.
Yeah, he was there for the game against Cameroon at the World Cup, and that would be one of my most pleasing moments, really. Not obviously scoring at a World Cup and playing at a World Cup, but the fact that my dad was there to see it as well, and I think that is something that I'll always be pleased about.
Wow, amazing! In the stadium,
yeah, he was there. My wife, my 2 boys. So in fact, when you watch the goal, if you ever watch the goal,
Matt, I'll stop you there. Everyone's watched the goal about 1 billion times. Don't worry.
Everyone's watched the goal. Yeah, I've seen it a few times. But when I score, you're thinking, wow, what have I done? I've just scored in the World Cup. But you sort of run off, and I ran to the right-hand side of the goal. And then I remembered where they were, because they got there quite early before the game. I think a couple of hours before the game, because of the connections and the way it worked. So they were inside the stadium very early. And so I knew exactly where they were. So that's when you'll see me run behind the back of the goal. And I think I'm trying to shrug Robbie Keane off my shoulders and just to sort of point to my dad, really, and my wife. So, but it was great that he was able to see that.
Seeing as you brought up that goal, it was an amazing strike. I mean, you scored 5 times for Ireland. 2 of the goals, certainly, the one against Portugal in the qualification for the O2 World Cup was an extraordinarily good strike. And then the Cameroon goal, that was a beauty. I mean, that was a daisy cutter. You were running onto the ball. It would have been entirely possible if you had got ahead of yourself and ballooned that thing somewhere a million miles away from the goal. So your thought process as you ran onto that ball presumably was, I got to control the strike here.
Yeah, that's exactly it, really, because the ball was actually coming towards me, the pace was already on the ball. So for me, it was all about then just controlling it. I mean, that actually, George Burley, when he was my manager at Ipswich, he always used to analyse my game, and he worked incredibly hard. In fact, of all my managers, he was the one that worked hardest on my game. But he always said that he related it to golf clubs. He said, I've got the driver in the bag. He said, but you haven't got necessarily the sand iron or the pitching wedge, the more delicate passes or delicate finishes. He said, and that's something you've got to work on. But he said, I always had the driver. And that goal was a bit similar to a driver, really. And, that was years of practice, that was. We used to, in the gym at West Ham, play a game, sort of crossbars and little inside the gym at West Ham. And it was sort of 60, 70 yards long, and there was crossbars either end. We used to try and hit the crossbars, and there was a little D as well. We had to drop the ball into the D. Played that hour after hour every afternoon, and that actually, the goal was quite similar to one of those strikes, the way I came onto it. And it was just in my mind, really, just to catch it as cleanly as I possibly could. Fortunate enough, it was probably as sweet as I'll catch one.
Wasn't it? I mean, that was the Tiger Woods stinger.
Yeah, exactly. The little 2-iron off the tee. It was, as George Burley would say, as I say, I just caught it as nice as I could have done, really. And as soon as I hit it, I thought, that's got a chance. And sure enough.
Well, it sure did. And the whole country breathed a sigh of relief. Not least because given the Roy departure and everything, there was this fear, and I presume you as players must have had it. Like, if we embarrass ourselves now, minus Roy, if we don't even get out of our group, this is just going to be thrown at us forever. Like, that team, when you think about it, was under big pressure to deliver because of what had happened.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny because the mantra really going into that World Cup for weeks on end had been no regrets. And Mick had posted the dressing room full of these notes, no regrets, all the way around the dressing room. And half time he came in and he said, the one thing we've been talking about for 2 or 3 weeks is to have no regrets. And at half time, that's all we've got is regrets, because we hadn't turned up. We didn't play particularly well in that first period at all. So when it went in, there was that feeling of, right, we're okay. We know we needed a result, as you quite rightly say. We needed a result because of what had gone on, and so it was an important goal for us and a crucial result.
I'd say your head was spinning. I watched Ian Wright last night, and he was doing a match of the day roundtable chat with Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer. And look, I'll take what I can get in these frugal times for sport. So I was watching a bit of that. And Ian Wright made a great point. And if anyone's played football at even the crappiest of levels, they kind of know what he was getting at here, to a much lesser extent, I grant you. But he was saying he used to obviously love scoring the goal, and he used to love the celebration and go wild. He said his favourite thing about scoring a goal was after tip-off, when the game resumed. And for those 20 to 30 to 40 seconds where you're running around, but you're not really concentrating on the game. All you're thinking is, I've scored. Oh, God, I've scored. Everyone saw the goal. So for you, who didn't score as many as Ian Wright, to do that one at the World Cup, you must have been in a bit of a daze for the 90 seconds afterwards when the game resumes, probably thinking of your dad and thinking of all those things and trying to concentrate on the game.
Yeah, I probably was. I mean, it's a long time ago, sure. And it's difficult to sort of remember exactly how it panned out, but I think I probably was. I mean, most times you score, it's an unbelievable feeling, but that is extra special. The fact it's in the World Cup, it's on the biggest stage, it's such an important, crucial goal for us as well. Yeah. My feelings would have been exactly like that, sort of 45, 50 seconds running around and not knowing exactly what to do. Like I say, when I scored, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
For 4 or 5 seconds, completely lost myself and just ran off. And then it was only then that I realised and remembered where my family were, that I was able to sort of control it and go over to them.
If I say to you now, World Cup '02, strongest memory, is it that goal? Is it the penalty? What jumps to mind?
Oh, wow. There's so many memories. I mean, obviously the goal is something that is played over and over again, so I see it more often. The penalty miss is something that will always haunt me. I took 8 penalties in my career, and that's the only one I missed. And it's the only one I blasted. It's weird. I took 8 penalties and placed 7, and I'd made my mind up that if it was going to go to a penalty shootout, I was going to blast it. I'd just made that decision prior to the game even.
You were a designated penalty taker in advance of the game. You knew.
No, not really. No, not at all. It was literally when the game finished, it was who fancies it, and I felt I'd had a reasonable tournament. I felt confident, and so I just felt in that moment that I wanted to take the responsibility and take one.
Yeah.
It'll haunt me forever. It was. I'd say when it's the only one you've missed as well. Scoring on the biggest stage, great, but missing a penalty on the biggest stage is just the same really. There's lots of things. There's little things even from that World Cup as well. I mean, the Germany game, the celebrations after that were huge. There was actually I think after about 20 minutes in that game, I had an almost carbon copy of the finish against Cameroon, and it just went the wrong side of the post. So there's lots of little things from that World Cup that I remember vividly. That penalty miss, actually, once it had all died down and we came off the pitch and went towards the dressing rooms, I actually got called for a drugs test. Myself and Robbie were the ones for the Irish team that got picked for the drugs test. And we went into the little room, and the first thing they had a little TV and the highlights going on of the game, and the first thing was my miss at the penalty. It was like, oh my God! Not only are we knocked out, not only have I been picked for a drugs test, I've sat down and now I've got this TV screen showing me my penalty miss as well. So that was quite vivid.
Was yours the one that caught the crossbar?
Yeah, I smashed it. As I say, it's the only one I ever smashed.
Yeah,
I wanted to go down the middle. I wanted to go pound because I see some powder puff penalties at times. I've seen them and think, well, if I'm going to go out, I'm going out in a blaze of glory. I'm going to go for it and try and strike it. As I said, I had that driver in the bag. It was just my go-to strike really, and so that was why I went for it. Pace and power down the middle. Just got too much. I mean, I suppose. I don't know, adrenaline,
yeah, for sure.
Adrenaline,
for sure.
maybe tiredness even as well, because 120 minutes of intense football, and then you got to take a penalty as well. But it was a tough moment.
Well, you feel, look, I'm sure horrific. Although to be honest, bar England seemed to have a habit, especially in the 90s. Dave Baddy missed one, and Gareth Southgate famously. That seemed to be a big thing. The man who missed the penalty in the tabloids. I think in the main, and certainly over here, all that anybody felt about yourself or Kevin Caban, who's on the show a good bit now, or David Connolly was, well, fair play for taking one. Like, it's not easy to take one. I presume you didn't get stick off anyone for missing. I certainly hope not.
No, not at all. I didn't get an advert out of it either, which was not good news. Could have done with that. I don't know. Actually, Kev was brilliant afterwards, because when we went back to the hotel and the team actually waited for me to finish the drugs test, because it was going on for ages. As you can imagine, when you've played 120 minutes, you're pretty dehydrated. It takes a while to provide a specimen, and we were ages. But the team waited for myself and Robbie. And when we got back to the hotel, I was sort of a bit in tears in my room, and was struggling a bit with it. And got a knock on the door, and it was Kevin. And because he'd been through it as well. He said, look. He said, we're all going out. And I said, no, I'm fine. I said, I'm just going to sort of sit in the room. He said, no. He said, we're going out. You're coming with us. And, that's it. End of story. Right. So he was, I mean, Kev's a brilliant bloke. You work with him all the time.
That's a very Kevin Caban story.
Well, honestly, that's something that will always live with me. You talk about memories from that World Cup. That's one that will always live with me. And I'll always be thankful for Kevin for that, because we did have a good night as well.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but like... Open your room in tears. I mean, geez. It's, one, you don't want to spend the rest of the night up in the room on your own in tears, but that even just captures how down about it you were. I thought you were going to say you got back to the hotel and went to the bar for a drink. But no, it was up to the room. I almost need to be alone to digest this.
Well, I spoke to my wife and was in tears on the phone to her, yeah. And so I was struggling. But he was, as I say, Kev was the one that sort of brought me around and was brilliant with it, yeah.
I guess it helps that you weren't the only one who'd missed one.
Probably. I think that would have been a lot worse, wouldn't it, if it had just been... In fact, that penalty shootout, half the penalties were missed.
It was a dreadful penalty shootout.
It was, exactly. Finished 3-2. So only 5 scored and 5 missed. So it was, 50-50.
Yeah. There's the Mendieta one that bobbles over Given's leg, which is
I know.
A heartbreaker. Yeah.
Oh, don't. Oh, I could just picture it now.
Yeah, I remember watching that in a local GAA club, and we only realised during the penalties that one TV was slightly ahead of the other, and I was on the wrong TV, so we knew by the cheers whether you were about to miss or score. So it was just a complete disaster. But I mean, so if Roy hadn't left, would you have started those games? Where were you in the pecking order at that stage with Mark Kinsella as well? Were you were knocking on the door for sure?
Yeah, I think I would have started. I don't want to preempt you, Mick, and you'd have to ask him. But when the squad numbers were given out and I got number 8, it was sort of I felt an indication that it might have been me and Roy in midfield, certainly for the first game anyway. So I think the way the qualifying campaign had gone, I was obviously found my way in it as it went on. And I think the fact that I got the squad number 8 for the tournament, I think I was probably just going to start, but you'd have to ask Mick that question.
Yeah, sure. Did you enjoy playing with Roy when you were on with him? It was obviously demanding, I'm sure. Most players say in a good way.
Yeah, I think in a good way as well. He certainly made you a better player. He did demand high standards, and I was someone that actually enjoyed that and relished that. And you know, he could make it tough at times because he was on you the whole time. I remember one particular game against Cyprus when we actually won 4-0. It was 4-0 at the time. And he passed me a ball in midfield. I gave it away. They went on the attack. Shea made a save. And honestly, for two minutes after that, he's barking at me. Get hold of the ball. Don't give it away. And I'm like, hang on a minute, Roy. We're 4-0 up. Just relax. And he, for 2 minutes, honestly, he was at me. And that, you know, you think, right, next time he gives him the ball, don't give it away. Yeah. Get the touch right. Make sure you do it properly. And so actually, you know, he does, although he's pretty tough at times, I felt it made me a better player, yeah. And
in those instances, do you bark back or do you just have to kind of take it?
Well, you might bark back once or twice, but then he just is relentless, honestly. He just keeps going and going. So you end up just going, all right, Roy, whatever. And just, but then you just think, right, next time, make sure I do everything right.
It was a good team, you know. Like, you looked through it and, like, Shea Given, brilliant goalkeeper. Steve Finnan was about to win a Champions League with Liverpool. Ian Hart, at that time, Leeds were flying. You've Steve Staunton, who's still playing excellent football and obviously is a legendary player. You're in there playing very good football. Duff, Robbie Keane, Kev Kilban, Mark Kinsella, Gary Breen's there, Gary Kelly, and so on. And then, you know, even on the bench for that Spain game, you've Niall Quinn, who, even though he was getting on, was really useful, brilliant player when you brought him on. Kenny Cunningham, he's experienced. Clinton Morrison. Stephen Reid kind of burst on the scene a little bit around then as well. Lee Carsley. Richard Dunn, very young Richard Dunn. Like, that's a serious enough squad. Lots of Premier League talent in there. Yeah,
it was a good squad and great lads as well. I mean, you know, yes, all good players, but the camaraderie and the spirit amongst that group, you had a real mixture of personalities and characters. You know, Gary Kelly, an absolute comedian, Niall Quinn, the storyteller, Steve Staunton, who'd been there, seen it, done it, McAteer, the Joker. You had all sorts of different characters and different personalities, but married together, it worked and we all got on really well. So it was a really great squad to be a part of, you know, some really good people.
And what was your role in all that, Matt? Were you kind of sensible, consummate pro is kind of how I see you?
Probably steady Eddie down the middle, just, you know, just get on with everyone. That's probably my role really, and you know, we're all very different. And as I say, I certainly wasn't the Joker and someone who'd be messing around all the time. Yeah. But you know, played my part, I suppose, and the same as everyone else did. You know, I think it's important when you've got a group of lads together that you all have those different things that come together, and we did have good people.
I know, and by the way, I'm not asking this question with any agenda, by the way, at all, but I know your grandmother from Monaghan, and you weren't best pleased a couple of years ago when Roy, in his second book, had mentioned you were singing the English anthem for Ipswich during a game, and you thought, well, that wasn't, you didn't think much of that. Did you grow up in a very Irish household, or was this something that almost came as a very pleasant surprise to you when Mick picked up the phone, or whoever picked up the phone and said, come and play for Ireland?
No, I mean, in fairness, I did grow up in a pretty English household, really, if I'm honest. But obviously, my grandmother lived in England as well, and we saw her lots, and she talked very much about it and the heritage, etc. And it was something I was always aware of. And my dad actually was someone who was keen for me to play for Ireland, really.
Right.
He was the one who was really keen about it, and. I don't know, really. I just got a call out the blue, really, from Mick McCarthy. I think I made George Burley aware of it. So the fact that I could play for Ireland, right, and wanted to play for Ireland, and I think he then spoke to Mick McCarthy about it. And then I got a phone call at home from Mick, and usual thing, the home phone's ringing, and I think my wife might have answered it and said it's Mick McCarthy on the phone, and I sort of, yeah, of course, who's messing about? One of the lads at Ipswich is being stupid and putting on a Mick voice or whatever, and no, it was genuinely him. Would you like to play in a B international? I had absolutely no hesitation. Played at Bray Wanderers, I think against the League of Ireland 11, and that was it really. I didn't have any hesitation. Went straight to the Irish embassy, got my Irish passport, and that was it.
Yeah. I must say I didn't have a great problem with you singing the English national anthem if it's being played out in a stadium, and you're allowed to be both.
Well, you are, yeah, but to be honest, it was actually a mistake. If I'm honest, I wasn't meaning to sing it. I only sang a line, I think, of it. I didn't even sing it all. I had a bit of mental block because I was at the playoffs and final, and it was a big stage. Sort of looked, and George Burley was there. I thought, he's Scottish. Why is he singing it? And then. So I thought maybe I should be, and then so I sang one line, and that was it, really.
Yeah. What was Mick like to work under then for you as manager? Because we forget how young he was at that stage when he took the gig. He always seemed like a kind of leader type figure, captain, and just almost always mature. But he was so young as a manager, and taking over the Irish job, that was a big gig to take at his age. How did you find him?
I love Mick, I think the reason I loved him because he was so honest and so direct. I think as a player, the most important thing a manager can be is straight up with you. If he likes you, he likes you. If he doesn't like you, he doesn't like you. If you're in the team, you're in the team. If you're out of the team, you're out of the team. But don't fluff it around and say, I'm resting you on this, on that. And there was no fluff with Mick. You knew exactly where you stood. You knew exactly where you were. I scored the goal. You mentioned the goal against Portugal. I scored that goal against Portugal, and I thought, I'm going to be in the next game. I've come on at half time. I've scored the goal. I've shown him what I can do, and it was. I think maybe the next day or the day after, we got back to the hotel in Ireland and in Dublin, and he said to me, "You're back on the bench on Wednesday." He said, the lads who've played so far have been brilliant. He said, I'm not changing. It's going back to 4-4-2. I'm going 4-4-2, and that's it. And you're going to be back on the bench. He didn't fluff around, and he just told me exactly how it was. And that was it, really. I think he was very loyal to his team. So that the players that were in the team and doing well for him, it was hard to get out the team, if you like. It was hard to break into the team. It took an injury or someone, missing a game for a suspension or whatever it might have been. And then if you came in the team and did well, then obviously you were then in control of the shirt again. And that's what I love most about Mick. He's such a real family guy. His family were great. They were at the World Cup. Remember him, his kids and wife, Fiona. And they're just a brilliant family and just such an honest, down-to-earth guy, really.
Do you think, and look, I'll ask him this sometime, although actually I won't, because he's talked more than enough about O2. Do you think he managed to enjoy that World Cup with the Roy stuff in the background? Because he must have known, oh my God, this is going to follow me around for a long time. Like, he certainly celebrated the Germany goal, and on the pitch he was completely involved in the games. But away from the matches, was he, do you think, very aware of the scale of what had just happened, and was there a degree of stress about him, or did he manage to park it?
I think once the tournament got underway, I think he was able to park it a bit then, because I think that there were less and less questions about Roy then. I think up until the first game against Cameroon, the 2 weeks in the build-up to that first match, I think were horrendous for him. It must have been the most difficult 2 weeks he's ever had to deal with, because every question was about Roy. Every question was, is he going to come back? And he had to deal with that in every press conference. And as a manager, you're in every press conference. The players, you're able to sort of do it on a rota. You go in every week, even once a week, whereas Mick had to do it every day for 2 weeks. And that must have been awful for him. But I think once that first game got out of the way, we'd got a decent result, he was able then to enjoy it a bit more, I think. But those 2 weeks in the build-up must have been awful.
Yeah, I can imagine so. We're going to take a short break. I want to chat to you about the club career as well, actually, if you've the time. One last one, though. It's interesting. You said something about Mick, which a huge number of players say, which is, oh, well, he's honest. It's like, almost like it's a relief to deal with someone who's honest with you, which suggests that in football, there is a lot of bullshitting which goes on, and a lot of managers who are not straight with the players, or are almost, yeah, I love you, and then trying to sell you a week later kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's so much of that. I think it's just perhaps not having the backbone to tell you things as well, and just make, if you knock on a manager's door and you have to go in face to face with them across a desk and ask them why you're not playing, or what, I think it's easy for them to say, no, I'm a big fan of yours. All I did was rest you on Tuesday. You'll be back in next. It's an easier thing to do. I think it's a strength of Mick's that he was able to look you in the eye and say, X, Y, Z, this is why. You've not done this, you've not done that, or Mark Kinsella's done this, and you're going to have to be patient, etc. So I think it was more the fact that he had a backbone, really. Right,
OK. Listen, we'll take a very short break, and then we'll pick things up with Matt Holland in just 1 sec.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
Screen Time with John Fardy.
With the whole country seemingly binging on TV, box sets and movies, this week on the Screen Time podcast, I'll help you separate the wheat from the chaff. The new Jesse Eisenberg movie Vivarium gets a digital release this week, and I speak to its Irish director. Plus, funny man Bernard O'Shea on his favourite movie.
Screen Time with John Fardy.
Brought to you by Stella Cinemas.
On News Talk.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast now on newstalk.com or on the News Talk app.
What's yellow and blue and got room for you? You Store It. You Store It is Ireland's best and most trusted self-storage provider.
Great facility, good access, great staff. I've been using You Store It, and it has been great for storing everything I need for my company.
Visit our website, check out our 5-star reviews and book today for home or business storage. What's yellow and blue and got room for you? You Store It. Visit youstore.ie.
In these difficult times, the tourism industry is facing extraordinary challenges. And at Fáilte Ireland, we're doing everything we can to help. That's why we've created a dedicated online support hub to guide and advise over the coming weeks and months. Visit fáilteireland.ie for regular official updates on everything from accessing finance to tourism business supports. And know that in this, the most challenging of times, we're here to support you.
Lawn moss? Not a problem. Apply Zero Lawn Liquid now in your lawn. I'm Porry Corkin, garden expert on Pat Kenny's programme, and I use Zero Lawn Liquid on my own lawn. Zero kills moss overnight. Zero is easy to apply and very fast acting. Apply Zero to your lawn now for a moss-free, rich green lawn this spring. Zero Lawn Liquid is now available online at horkins.ie for a direct delivery to your home. For a moss-free lawn this spring, apply Zero Lawn Liquid now.
Need to get rid of some junk? Clear out the shed or the attic? Or maybe tackle that overgrown garden? Why not pick up a big yellow A1 skip bag from your local Circle K store? With a 10% discount on collections, it's great value. Remember, A1 skip bags are available from your Circle K Dublin, Cork, Waterford and Limerick, except Circle K Express. See a1skipbags.ie.
Right now, we all deserve a good dose of kindness. That's why Boots would like to thank our amazing colleagues for their ongoing commitment. For over 23 years, we've supported our communities and kept our pharmacies open. Our colleagues are here to support you with medicines, prescriptions and trusted advice. So please help them while they do their best to help you. Keep safe. Keep being kind. Share your Boots Kind stories, pictures and messages using #PrescribeKindness. Thank you and stay safe from Boots.
COVID-19 is a major public health emergency here in Ireland and around the world. We have moved into a more intensive phase in our response to help limit the spread of the virus and to protect our community, and are now asking everyone to stay at home. There are 7 limited exceptions. 1. You may go to work if your workplace remains open and operating in accordance with public health guidelines, but only if your job cannot be done from home. 2. You may travel for the purposes of your work, but only if your work is an essential health, social care or other essential service and cannot be done from home. To find out more about essential services and what to do if you are an employer or an employee, go to gov.ie. 3. You may shop for food and household goods or collect a meal. 4. You may attend essential medical appointments and collect your medicines and other essential health products. 5. You may leave your home for vital family reasons, such as providing care to children, elderly, or other vulnerable members of your family. 6. You may take brief outdoor physical exercise, staying within 2 kilometres of your home, accompanied only by people from your own household. 7. You may leave your home for farming, food production, and care of animals. Essential retail outlets will remain open, and details of the retailers and everything else related to this important phase of how Ireland is responding to the crisis are available now on gov.ie. Supported by the Government of Ireland.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
Now you're welcome back. Happy to say we have Matt Holland with us. A couple of questions coming in. I'll quick fire them to you, Matt, towards the end of the show. I was just checking your Twitter feed there. So about a week ago, Happy Mother's Day, the pic was up of you and what looks like Dad and Mum. So
Dad? That's my brother.
Oh no, that's your brother. Oh, he's not going to like that one bit.
But believe him or not, he's the younger brother as well. I'm the oldest.
Jesus, why, you're aging like a fine wine.
I tell you, unbelievable, isn't it? 2 brothers there, my mum, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I see him closer now. In fairness, actually, he's okay. He's okay.
He does the cold right now. He's had more stress than me in his life.
Was Mum a big pusher of the football as well? Because the reason I checked, because you mentioned your dad so much in the first part.
Yeah, she didn't particularly like football. She was quite happy for Dad to take me, and my youngest played a bit. The middle one played, but he not as much. But he was sort of ferrying us around everywhere all weekend, really, and she was quite happy to sort of stay at home and look after the house while we went off playing football and watching football.
So if you're playing a massive match, say the World Cup game, I presume she would tolerate that for 90 minutes.
Yeah, I reckon. I think you said I played over 700 games, and I reckon she probably came to. I could count on my 2 hands how many games she came to in that time, professional games. She didn't come very often. Found it difficult, I think, to watch me as well. Probably a bit nervous as well, and was always worried I'd get injured or something. So she didn't come to too many games. My dad didn't miss a game I played until I was, crikey, 18, 19. So all the way through, I don't think he even missed a game. And then through my professional career, he came to as many as he possibly could do until sort of health got the better of him, really.
Sure. So Mum was just saying, come home safe, whatever happens in the game, whatever.
Yeah, exactly that. So yeah, she was obviously a big support, but from a distance, really. Whereas my dad was the one that ferried me here, there, and everywhere. On
the captaincy front, so you mentioned captaining teams when you're growing up, and that being one of the things which maybe suggested you had a bit of promise. But then, as I understand it, when you're at West Ham and out on loan to Bournemouth, you were captain of Bournemouth as a 21, 22-year-old. Ipswich, 97 to 03, captain. And then when you moved to Charlton, you're made captain pretty soon there as well. That's an amazing record. I saw it was George Burley kind of called you Captain Marvel. So it was clearly something you were good at, or people recognised you had the ability to do. Now, that's not just being steady Eddie. There's a bit more to it than that. So why do you think, well, one, you clearly wanted to be a captain if you're doing it in all those different clubs. But what was it, do you think, that managers liked about your approach or other players respected?
I think there was I enjoyed the responsibility of it.
Right.
I think I was someone that tried to lead by example. So, if a manager sees the captain putting in the work, then the rest of the team, will feel as though they should follow as well. So I think there was a bit of that. There was a sensibleness about me at times as well. When your group of lads are away, sometimes it can get a little bit rowdy and raucous. So I was someone that although I enjoyed a good time and there was a time to relax and switch off, and I also recognised that we were professionals and we had a job to do as well. So there was always an element of that, I think, from a manager's point of view. I was someone who was easy to talk to, I suppose, for a manager and try and get their message across. And Mel Machin was the first one, I think. I mean, I was sort of captain growing up, and only because I think, as I say, I was quite vocal on the pitch and tried to lead by example. But Mel Machin was the first one that really sort of drew it out of me, really, those leadership qualities. And he had me in his office every single day at Bournemouth with a cup of tea, chatting about the team, chatting about training. What do you think? Do we need to do a bit more? Do we need to do a bit less? How the lads feeling? And he almost, I was almost like a coach in some ways, because he was not that he was prying in the dressing room particularly and trying to get stories about the lads and what they were doing. It was more a case of, have we trained them too hard this week, or how are you feeling? How's your legs? Or should we, perhaps do a bit more? And I've been quite honest with him and say, I think it's been easy this week and we need to do a bit more, a bit of running maybe or something. Or I would say, I think it's been heavy load and the legs are feeling a bit tired. We've got a game on Saturday and we need to just ease it down and maybe do a sharper session maybe tomorrow or something. So he was someone that drew those leadership qualities, I suppose, out of me from an early age.
You blossom at Ipswich, and younger listeners may not remember, but it was an amazing thing when Ipswich came up to the Premier League. And in their first season finished 5th. They got into the UEFA Cup the following year. Inter Milan, all these amazing games the following year, and then relegation that same second year. So I mean, geez, it blew up in a magnificent way, and then almost disappeared before we got used to you guys being there. Yeah. George Burley was the captain. You driving this team on a couple of efforts to get into the Premier League, and eventually you got there. So what you said about Burley, talking about your set of golf clubs, was a fascinating insight, because I think everyone knows exactly what he means, the driver to the sandwich. What did he do for you as a player?
Well, of all the managers, he was the one that spent the most time individually on a training ground improving me as a footballer. Just individual stuff after training had finished, just working on, as I said, perhaps the 8-iron, the 9-iron, the pitching wedge, certain passes that I could bring into my game. Being on the half turn, trying to look forward, just working on little things, basic things, if you like, maybe, but some things that I needed to make me a better player. And I think some players would have seen that as, I don't know, a bit of a slight. You're captain of the team, you're 24, 25, and yet you're still getting the manager saying to you, right, you need to do this, you need to work on that. And it wasn't just me he did it with all the players as well, or a lot of the players. But certainly, obviously, he wanted to do it with me because he felt I was a player and wanted to improve me as well, and that I could be a big asset for him. So he did work incredibly hard as everyone does the team training, but individual stuff I think is quite rare, really. And so he was someone that spent the most amount of time individually with me.
Okay, because we can underestimate that, It's funny, we were talking about Kevin Kilban earlier on, and sometimes when he sits in here and watches Ireland matches, for instance, he'll watch midfield players who are not taking the ball on the half-turn, so a full-back gives it to a midfield player, and the first touch can often be going straight back towards the full-back, and then they're boxed in, has to give it back to the full-back, and the ball's pumped long. And he's watching it going, is no one getting these lads to take it on the half-turn? And you could easily presume that a Premier League or Championship footballer knows to do that already, but sometimes you need the minutiae to be worked on.
Well, I think academies now, that you do tend to work a lot more. I mean, the academy system was very different to how it is now. The amount of hours that they get with them at a young age, I think it's very different. So those sorts of things are worked on very heavily, the technical side of the game. So I think it is slightly different now, and they should, as you say, they should know those things as well. It's I think it's the stuff that you can't teach sometimes as well that we don't see now from footballers really. I think the academy life actually is not easy, but it mollycoddles the players into a false sense of security really. I think they're quite soft on them now as well, and I think that winning mentality sometimes gets taken away from them from a young age as well. They have to play for their clubs now. They can't play for their sort of Sunday teams and experience the highs and lows of winning a cup, losing a cup final, winning the league, missing out by a point, all those little things that harden you, I think, as a youngster. I was fortunate to be able to do that, play for my little club side where we might win the league one year, but the next year we might lose it by a point. I'd win a cup final, I'd lose a cup final, I'd not get to the cup final, I'd lose a quarter final. And it's heartbreaking. You think it's the end of the world when you're 9-10 years old and you've lost a semi-final. But actually, those things really harden you up, I think, as an individual. And I think a lot of young kids now miss out on that.
Yes, no, I'm sure. If you had to boil it down into the question, I suspect that has been asked in bars around Ipswich for 20 years now, why did it firstly work so brilliantly under George Burley and that fifth place finish, and then why did it disappear so quickly?
Difficult. I mean, George had a really good eye for a player and was working incredibly hard for a number of years in trying to just each season he'd change things. Maybe one or two would go, one or two would come in, just trying to alter it. And for 3 or 4 or 5 years, we were knocking on the door of the Premier League before we actually, because I think it was 4 playoffs in a row. I actually played in 3 of them before we eventually got to the final and won it in 2000. So I think it was the culmination of a lot of work that had gone into getting to that point. And we were a very good team. And I mentioned the island spirit and the camaraderie, and the group at Ipswich at that time was very similar to that. And I think maybe the following season we took our eye off the ball a little bit in terms of the Premier League, because we had the UEFA Cup and it was a different thing, something new again. And that Thursday, for some reason it's weird, but Thursday, Sunday compared to a Wednesday game, Saturday game.
And I hear this and it makes no logical sense, but the amount of players who say it,
it's out of sync, I think. It's just, you're almost like robots at times, and you're programmed to play when you play, and it just, for some reason, didn't work particularly well. I also think that there was, it's not that it's the individual's fault, but Serini came in goal, Finidi George came in. They both came in on big wages, and I think it upset the dressing room harmony a little bit.
Players who've been there a long time and were on lesser money.
4 or 5 years who've been knocking on the door and been building to that crescendo and building to that point of getting to the Premier League, then seeing a couple of lads who'd not done all that work to get there on bigger money than they were on. And I think that played a bit of a part in it. Not their fault at all.
Yes.
But I think obviously upset 1 or 2 in the dressing room as well.
I have a couple of quick-fire questions I want to get to. We've about 5-6 minutes, so feel free to shoot through any of these as quickly as you like. Mick says, sorry to ask the worst, most cliched question, Matt, but toughest, most impressive Premier League midfielder you played against?
Played against? Yeah. I mean, look, Roy was always a difficult player. I think I always
surely he went easier on you as an Ireland teammate.
Oh yeah, of course he did. There's a certain incident I remember at Old Trafford where we went into a crunching tackle and came at either the worst dead leg, but just couldn't show it to Roy. Just it's like he's one of those people who just couldn't show that you were hurt. Trying to get up and limp away, and oh my word! But he was always difficult to play against. But there was at that time some great midfield players. I mean, United had Scholes and Keane, Gerrard, Lampard, Vieira. I mean, Essien. There's a whole host of them. But I always say that Roy was tough to play against.
Okay. Somebody who says they're a West Ham fan and is asking for you to indulge them here. Can you ask Matt about Harry Redknapp as a manager? Was Paolo Di Canio there when he was there, and was he part of the Academy Golden Generation?
I wasn't part of the Academy Golden Generation. I was actually before the Golden Generation, but they were there bubbling under, and everyone was sort of talking about Joe Cole, Michael Carrick, Rio Ferdinand. Actually played with Rio at Bournemouth. He came on loan to Bournemouth when I was down there, so well aware of that Academy generation. Di Canio, No, I didn't play with him at West Ham, but I played with him at Charlton. I had a year with him at Charlton, and he was 35 when he came to the club, 34, 35, and he was the hardest worker I've ever seen in training. But some of the individual stuff, wow. I mean, he was a lunatic as well. I mean, he hated flying. He was a bit like Bergkamp, didn't want to fly anywhere. And his appearance record away from home, say Middlesbrough away, might be less than it would have been at home matches because he hated flying so much. But he was a really great character. Loved playing with him, and he was a great example to some of the young players with the work that he did. And Harry, yes, he was the manager at West Ham. I liked Harry a lot. He was actually a better coach than people gave him credit for as well. He was someone that loved doing the attacking side of the game, worked very heavily with the two strikers and how they played together. Brilliant character, personality, fun bloke to be around. It didn't quite work out for me with him at West Ham. I ended up moving to Bournemouth, but he did try and sign me for Portsmouth many years later, and he always reminds me of that as well. So he's a good guy.
That's a compliment. I'm surprised about the Canio being the hardest worker training one. I just didn't have him in that bracket or headspace. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, a phenomenon. I would have thought he'd turn up days and not be in the mood. More of a David Ginola type.
Listen, there'd be days not in the mood because he loved football. Yeah, football was his life, but he'd throw his toys out the pram and want to fight everyone because things weren't going his way. Someone didn't give him a decision in training, even in a five-a-side. He'd want to fight the world. Yeah. So there'd be days like that, but he'd be honestly in the gym from 8:30 in the morning, then go and train, stay out afterwards, and then be back in the gym after training as well. He was the hardest worker I've seen.
Wow. Okay. Hi lads, loving the chat. I'm an acquaintance of Brian Kerr and I remember him telling me Matty Holland was a gem of a lad, says one texter. Somebody here has apologised for throwing beer over you accidentally at Denmark versus Ireland in Copenhagen. So yeah, apologies if that happened. And then a last one, can you ask Matt how has he found, we've about a minute and a half here, the clock firmly against us. Can you ask Matt how he found adjusting to retirement? Always seemed like a well-balanced fella. How was that adjustment?
Hated it. Absolutely hated it, and even now still struggle at times. Miss football dearly, but the first year was awful. And even as you say, the most well-balanced, rounded people, you don't realise how much what you've got until it's gone. And that first year was probably the hardest year I've ever had. And even the days now where I miss it. I love going to matches now in my capacity as working in the media because I still get the same buzz. Football was my life from the age of 3. It will never change. It'll always be my life, and still get that buzz now. But miss football dearly. And that first year, that transition from going to every day with your mates to nothing, I think was probably the hardest year I've had.
I'm sure. Yeah, the bottom of the world just falls out basically. Yeah. Listen, thanks so much for doing that. We really appreciate it. Really enjoyable. Loads of texts coming in to say thanks for all you did for Ireland and those kind of things, and thanks for the
pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, no, it was great. So listen, that's it's another hour of self-isolation down and done.
Thank you,
Matt Holland. Thanks a million. Much appreciated. Best to you and the family. Cheers.
And you.